Now, the Madlanga Commission is expected to continue probing the conduct of the Investigative Directorate against corruption today. The Commission has been examining the investigation and prosecution of Crime Intelligence Head Dumisani Khumalo and 6 other officials from the unit. For more, we cross to our anchor Ayanda Nyathi and reporter Canny, who are both at the Bridget Mabandla Justice College to bring us the very latest. A very good morning to you, Ayanda. Today, indeed, we're expecting Ramsamy to continue with her testimony. But yesterday, quite explosive testimony we heard from Advocate Serunye, or the Deputy Director, if you will, of IDAC yesterday, among others, having stated that specifically at the court appearance of Lieutenant General Dumisani Khumalo and the others, there was no senior prosecutor, there was no Deputy Director who actually had overseen the investigation of that specific matter. They were ill-prepared. There was no bail statement. He literally was there just to support and was somebody that was essentially meant to be in the gallery, but it had to end up assisting those quite junior members who were now part of the prosecution of very senior generals of the police force.
You've given quite the summation, Mfundo, and you're right. Peter Serunye is the latest, if you like, as part of this IDAC stream to really turn on its head the version of events that were first presented by Andrea Johnson, who presented this notion or this image of her being at a distance between these investigations involving what is now commonly referred to as the Makwili matter and other investigations. But Peter Serunye really singing from the same hymn sheet, if you like, from Drushantha, Ramsamy, who told this inquiry that in fact she was an integral part of each and every step, or at least of the important steps that were taken, notwithstanding the concerns that they had about the lack of evidence, really, especially when it comes to that corruption charge against Dineo Mukwele as well as Dumisani Khumalo and others. So as we anticipate the return of Drushantha Ramsamy, it's worth reminding you of some of the most salient points from her own testimony the last time she was here on Thursday. I mean, for example, if you juxtapose what came out of Advocate Serunye's testimony yesterday, that it was difficult to approach Andrea Johnson because of her management style, you'd be reminded of what Drushantha Ramsamy said about how the same Andrea Johnson was Shamila Batoy's blue-eyed girl. Take a listen.
In November 2025, after Advocate Johnson testified at the IDAC committee, I contacted the same officer at the DPCI. I informed him that Advocate Johnson had lied to the IDAC committee and that I had proof of this. Once the new NDPP, Advocate Motibi, was appointed, I met with the DPCI officer. This would have been around March 2026.
Can I just interject to ask you why it's significant that you mention once the new NDPP was appointed? Did you meet with the DPCI officer?
Because I knew that if I had reported or we had taken these concerns to this then sitting NDPP, nothing would have been done. Advocate Johnson, there would be no repercussions, there would be no corrective measures.
By that you mean Advocate Shamila Batoy?
Correct.
Why would you have formed that opinion?
I was aware of the matter that was discussed with the Commission about the sharing of documents. But that was corridor talk, so I wasn't confirmed. But if I may put it frankly, from a prosecutor's point of view that's in the office every day, Advocate Johnson was the blue-eyed girl of Advocate Batoy. She could do no wrong.
So that's really quite, if you like, reminiscent of what we heard from yesterday's witness in Advocate Serunye, who also spoke about how Advocate Andrea Johnson wasn't the easiest person to approach. And in fact, he says once he was roped into this matter as the DDPP, that's when Ramsamy opened up to him about her own concerns regarding the evidence. Canny Maphanga is our senior reporter who has also been listening into the testimony and joins us now live. And Canny, I suppose it's quite clear already that part of what Ramsamy had to say the first time she was here has now been supported, for lack of a better term, by what we heard from Serunye yesterday, and much of that may very well continue today.
Absolutely, and we keep gearing up to this conclusion that she is the ultimate decision maker. She is the ultimate quote-unquote dictator of Project Diversion, and everything that was taking place was under her watch or allegedly under her instruction. Now, I'm not sure we can separate this debacle about the bail conditions from Johnson either, if the consistent pattern is that everything starts with Advocate Andrea Johnson in her then capacity as the IDAC head. And the main question that Drushantha Ramsamy is expected to answer to today is this particular quest to find out where does this bail condition come from, the one that would have barred Lieutenant General Dumisani, Khumalo and others from any crime intelligence office in the country. And if you rewind back to KZN Top Cop, Lieutenant General Nhlathla Mkhwanazi's testimony, he said that the gear was never about pursuing any prosecution in this matter. They actually had no intention of seeing it succeed, according to him. But it really was about ensuring that these individuals were outside of the crime intelligence system, the network, because remember, everything was taken, their devices, their phones, anything that had to do with crime intelligence, they were basically moved out of the system. And he's saying that that was allegedly the intention in this regard. And if it is accepted that this is the consistent pattern, then of course that bail condition, which Ramsamy will testify, was discussed, but it wasn't rather, I didn't know of it. So the junior prosecutor could not have communicated that to the magistrate. That is the inference that's being made there. Then we can only turn to the evidence of Advocate Andrea Johnson, or at least Johnson herself, to try and find an answer there. Because what it's looking like is, if we accept the patterns, then of course we must then find Major General Faraz Khan there in that scenario as well. Because we do see that when a preparatory note was made about the concerns relating to this particular matter that weren't answered by Advocate Andrea Johnson, the notes that Dylan Perriman made in that note made by Saronia says that Khan will explain this. So it seems, or at least what it appears to be, is that allegedly he was quite involved in this particular matter. And if he was, then it has to be explored whether or not those bail conditions could have allegedly been influenced by Major General Faraz Khan. You have to take into consideration that all the patterns now point to Advocate Andrea Johnson being the ultimate decision maker in Project Diversion. We then have two instances where you find Major General Faraz Khan as a common denominator with Johnson in her past as a senior public prosecutor, where she seems to be doing something that would work in his favor or his alleged interest. Yeah. Then you have her currently at IDAC as the head there, where it seems that IDAC is pursuing a case that Khan would have an interest in, allegedly. And you can almost marry the two and find some kind of answer in that particular conduct and the bizarre manner in which this matter was rushed to court, when we saw that the DTPP, who actually came on afterwards, is saying that there was no prima facie case, at least of corruption, against these individuals. So when you warm up to that question, the pattern that continues to emerge is that the ultimate decision maker would be Johnson. The common denominator remains Khan, and it's about finding out whether or not he had any alleged influence in that particular bail condition as well.
Speaking about Johnson's alleged involvement, it's worth, I suppose, taking our viewer back to the remarks that were made by Drushantha Ramsamy, who, as you can see, is back in the room here at the Bridget Mabanda Justice College. The last time she appeared, she indicated that as far as she's concerned, anybody who was to act or challenge Johnson's instructions would feel her wrath. Take a listen.
If you defy an instruction of Advocate Johnson, or you contradict her, the reign or the wrath, if you have to, may I speak about, if you have to go and check the records at the wellness program that NPA provides for its employees with regards to just work stress, home stress, counseling, you will be shocked at the amount of prosecutors and employees, admin staff from IDAC that are receiving counseling.
Is that not because of the nature of the work you do? Just explain.
No, Commissioner.
Yeah, please explain.
May I deviate? Am I allowed to deviate?
Slightly.
Slightly, okay. If you don't follow the instructions, you receive emails of a nature that, when I was consulting with the DPCI officer, when I intended on making protected disclosure in June last year, I likened it to being treated worse than scullery maid. You would be internally investigated, unlawfully so.
So that was Drushantha Ramsamy on Thursday. She is currently, of course, here at the Bridget Mabanda Justice College to continue with her testimony. Canny Maphanga has been helping us wade through what to anticipate. And Canny, we know that today she is likely to touch on that highly anticipated second statement she's given to the Commission. What are some of the issues that are likely to come up there?
Well, the most important issue is going to be that bail condition which barred Lieutenant General Dumisani, Khumalo and others from any crime intelligence office in the country. We know that upon appeal that bail condition has since been removed, but it's about finding out where this particular bail condition emanates from. And in answering this question, the Commission will have to ask themselves that in the current circumstances and in the allegations or what it points to in terms of what this case is allegedly about, you have to ask yourself who would have benefited from Khumalo and others not having access to crime intelligence or their devices or anything of that nature. Once you answer that question, you'll get to the alleged true intention, or at least close the gaps on what IDAC's matters into crime intelligence were truly about.
Canny Maphanga, our senior reporter here at the Bridget Mabanda Justice College. Thanks very much indeed. The commissioners have now entered the room with Drushantha Ramsamy, a state attorney with IDAC, set to continue her testimony. Let's listen.